welcome to Dysfictional, an RPG-focused podcast. I'm Ginger, professional film industry victim.
I'm Randy, the random generator.
I'm Tuki, former academic gone ranger.
Pew pew.
You bringing a gun to the bow and arrow fight?
Yeah, I only have a bow. I didn't have access to it.
Oh.
Yeah, where does pew pew come from?
Oh, I just thought he's at the range, you know?
Oh, got it. I mean, I thought maybe that was like a fancy new subclass or a really cool feature from D&D 2024, which is what we're talking about tonight.
Oh!
Yay.
He's so excited. I'm actually excited. There are 3 new subclasses, and I want to talk about them.
They all have some delicious flavor.
That they do.
Nom, 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 nom. I am currently playing a druid, as you know, in our campaign that we play together. And there is a new druid subclass. There is a new barbarian subclass. And there is a new bard subclass that basically lets you be Kevin Bacon from Footloose, who, as we all know, according to the Guardians of the Galaxy, is the universe's greatest hero. What are your thoughts?
Agreed. I mean, no other comment, except that... No, I got no other comment, actually.
Wow. How insightful.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Great. Well, it was awesome discussing the subclasses with you both tonight. I'm going to go walk the dog, I guess. No, but I would like for us to talk about the 3 new subclasses. I read through them, and as someone who's currently playing a druid and someone who is a scuba diver and someone who is obsessed with the ocean and someone whose favorite game of all time is Subnautica, I was surprised because my favorite of the new subclasses is not the Circle of the Sea. I actually think I like one of the other ones better. I'm shook.
Yeah, I think the Druid of the Sea feels like a little bit of a Poseidon emphasis, but it's almost more like a storm druid to me. It gets like the water features, swim speed, water breathing and stuff. I think it does well for a warden druid specifically because its main feature, which does a lot of damage at higher levels, it basically creates like a sort of twister around yourself, and then entities around them, you can choose which one to pick, and then they take some damage from it. At higher levels, it can go all the way up to 5d6, which is quite a bit. But that's their main feature until level 14 when they cast it on the Angry Tree Man.
Yeah, the aura is really cool. I also immediately thought Storm Druid, though, and not necessarily Ocean. I guess maybe giving you sort of like a Cloak of Storms kind of aura is their way around the fact that most campaigns are predominantly land-based, and it might be a little bit, difficult to translate a Circle of the Sea Druid to like a campaign that's currently taking place in the desert or a mountain or a forest or the Underdark or wherever. So I do kind of get that that's a little complicated to do, but it does thunder damage, which is not what I think of when I think of the ocean, right? I would think of like force damage, honestly. If you're thinking like crushing waves, you're thinking like gravity damage, like pressure-based damage, like something that can suck the air out of your lungs, something that can like crush your bones as you get deeper into pressure, things like that are what I think of when I think about like the ocean's destructive forces.
Yeah.
And not so much like thunder and lightning. So I did also think it sort of felt more like a Storm Druid vibe, but it does have some cool effects. And as you said, especially at the higher levels, and you can share those effects with your party, which is nice. You can choose people to also protect with it, which is nice. It gives you like a little extra support there. And, that's always nice. Even the lower level, the Wrath of the Sea feature level 3 is nice because you can expend the wild shape for the aura. You can, when you do the damage, push things 15 feet away from you. So it is a nice way to control like the immediate area. It can also sort of counteract the druidic tendency to get overwhelmed by lots of enemies at once, because they still don't. I mean, with the newer rules, they can do more types of armors than they used to do, but like they're usually unarmored or they usually have like a kind of lower AC. So it's nice to be able to push things away and not provide opportunity attacks from it. So there are bonuses, but thematically, yeah, I agree that it feels more storm based than ocean based specifically for me.
I thought that they actually did a good job though with the way that it's based. I do understand where you're coming from, but I think though they have a nice balance with the sort of lightning, ice, water, thunder damage.
Like the storm of a sea.
Yeah, exactly. Like the storming seas. And it also makes it more spread. You kind of mentioned this, Ginger, but it makes it more viable outside of just water campaigns.
Yeah.
And the spells that they get access to. So it's interesting. They get access to certain spells from starting at 3rd level up through 9th. I think it's like 3, 5, 7, 9 or something like that. And the spells are pretty nice. I mean, Way of Frost, Thunder Wave, Lightning Bolt, Ice Storm, Control Water, Conjure Elemental. There's a few other ones there. It's a nice array of spells, pretty useful, damage, some utility ones.
But not one tidal wave.
No, but Control Water. Maybe create a tidal wave.
So druids already get tidal wave, so they can already blend that in there. They don't really have anything that helps it necessarily. However, they don't get Shatter or Thunderbolt on a druid spell list, so adding those on is a great feature for them, at least. So they get a lot of spells that they don't normally have access to, which I think is great with the subclass. And then, like you said, add in tidal wave.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that it's already prepared. They do also get some spells that they do also have access to as well. But yeah, it just feels like, it could be one of the free ones.
Yeah.
Gaining the fly speed is cool.
Yeah, and me personally, I prefer to have spells I don't have access to on the subclass spell list, because if I'm flavoring it, chances are I'll probably grab something like Tidal Wave. But I do get your point as well that having it always prepared just saves you that effort. But druids have a pretty big amount of spells they can prepare now, and it's not tied to the wisdom modifier anymore with the update. So at least you don't have to worry about trying to max out your wisdom immediately for it, even though you should anyway. As Warden, by the way, they get access to medium armor, I believe, as well. So that should help out with some of their AC. At least the Wrath of the Sea is cold damage, so I also get a little bit of that sea. I think maybe I am a little more on your side, Tuki. Like, it does kind of emphasize the sea in terms of a storm, like hurricane almost.
It has sea vibes.
Yeah, it has the sea vibes, but I get your point as well. And that's what I was feeling initially, is that when I think sea, I think ocean and more the water and not what's above it. But the above sea is pretty dangerous as well. So
I just really like, we kind of been mentioned a little bit. The aura is just, I don't know, it just seems really fun. And then, on top of the damage it does, the damage it does, on top of that, you have the fact that you can push enemies back 15 feet, which is pretty good. I think it's on a save. And then obviously at the higher levels, when you can use it on someone else and still yourself, you have to spend 2 wild shape charges, but you could have it essentially covering 2 parts of a battlefield. So it just feels like it's got a lot of good utility. And in general, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't feel overpowered at all. It doesn't feel underpowered immediately. I guess we'll have to see as it's played more or see what combinations people come up with, but I don't think that this one was going to be underpowered. I think it might be in a decent spot. It might get some changes over time or something, but like it feels like it'll be in a decent spot defensively, offensively, and utility wise.
I will say too, one extra note about that is really nice. So essentially the aura is very similar to like your Tasha's guys, right? Where it lasts 10 minutes and it gives you all these crazy resistances and stuff. Because by the time you're level 10, Stormborn kicks in and you also gain resistance to cold, lightning, and thunder while you have it on. So you're gaining a lot of benefits for 10 minutes. And like you said, at level 14, you can give it to someone else. But it comes from expending a use of your wild shape. And we were just talking about this earlier today as I was tweaking my character sheet. You can now, as a druid, expend spells to get extra wild shape.
So you can use this feature more, which is great.
This aura is something that you can use as long as you still have first level spell slots.
Yeah.
you can keep making more wild shapes and keep using it, because even just to convert your spell slot to an additional wild shape charge, it's not even an action. It's like a free action. So it is really nice. Like, imagine, Tuki, in our last campaign, if you had been able to expend your bardic dice to just keep casting Tasha's guys, right? Like, it's like that. So that's pretty powerful, actually.
One quick note, at least my last thing about this that I like, is that all of the features of it, so the aquatic affinity and Stormborn, they have features that are good, especially the aquatic affinity. It has a feature that is even better if it's a water-based campaign, but it still buffs your Wrath of the Sea. So even if you're not a water-based campaign, this is still a subclass you'd probably like to pick up, because unlike some other subclasses that are borderline useless if you're not in the right environment, this one's like, you could never touch the sea and still gain almost all the features and be still really powerful.
It's because you're bringing the sea with you. But
yeah,
I did have one last comment as well. Exactly. Rock 'em like a hurricane. One last comment I was going to make was, it is nice that, those additional spells that they essentially have access to and are prepared for them. Those are all, like I mentioned, between level 3 and 9. But if you think about it, it's kind of nice because that gives them access to all of that before level 10. So you kind of can have all these, different options, different themes, as part of your character before level 10. So you don't have to get into like super high level play just to have them. So it's an interesting choice, because a lot of times I feel like that stuff would have been spread even into like level 14 or something, or 15. But having that all before 10 is kind of a nice little piece to it.
I would have liked, the one thing I'll say I would have liked is, and I know it's so rare that they just are like, hey, we made a new spell. But for a class like this, that's specifically Circle of the Sea, I would have loved to have a spell, like if I was playing a Circle of the Sea druid, in my wildest dreams, I would like to have a spell similar to Whelm, where it either surrounds someone in water, or a spell like a Davy Jones based, like deep sea, like a drown spell, where like you can touch someone and they just start, like their lungs start filling up with water. They have to make like a con save to keep from drowning. Something like that, where it really brings that deep, like scary sea to the land in a new way. But that, that's just me having fantasies. It is very cool regardless.
Maybe like a reflavored Hungers of Hadar, but instead of like darkness, it's like the Kraken water or something,
or like Kraken tentacles instead of like Evard's black tentacle, like something that was like, you're summoning the ocean itself, like would have, to new biome would have been really fun, I think, personally. But that's Circle of the Sea. It definitely has great uses, and there's 2 more ones, and we still haven't got to my favorite, but let's talk about the Bard.
Yeah, the College of Dance, I believe.
Yep.
I'm calling it the Kevin Bacon Bard.
Dancing is officially spellcasting.
Right? This one's nice because I think all 3 of these have a lot of theme to them, but this one's cool because a lot of Bard, everything before has always been song-based, music-based, singing-based. I mean, that's always been sort of the focus. So to have it more performance and have it be more dance-based is, I think, just a really fun thematic thing that you can go for. There's obviously tons of ways to play this as character choices or personalities that you go with too. But as far as the new subclass themselves, some of the things I know I was excited about, and I just had played a Bard. We do Gestalt characters, but my last character was a rogue Bard, and I was already thinking of some cool combinations that you could do with this one. And it seems to be very flexible. It has a lot of offensive abilities. It has some defensive and even utility wise. And the first thing I'll mention, I think, which is just really interesting, is that level 3, if you're not wearing armor or a shield, so they basically can have unarmored defense. And their unarmored defense,
3rd class to get it.
Yeah, but it's really funny because if you think about it, it's their AC becomes 10 plus their dex plus their charisma modifier. So it's just funny to see a charisma modifier go into their armor.
I actually had a fun visual of that too. So like, of course, for them with an unarmored defense, I kind of think sort of similar to the monk, but for them, they're dodging via like dancing, like dance moves, and they just can't hit me basically. But then you could throw in the charisma of almost like coercing them not to attack you while they're attacking you, and almost like get them to like hesitate their attacks, or like bat your eyes and go, "You wouldn't hurt me, would you?" And go, "Oh man." And then they're causing them to miss, which I think would be really funny to flavor they're
too pretty to hit
into your unarmored defense. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a scene, I have not seen this movie in so long, but I feel like Esmeralda does that a couple times in the Hunchback of Notre Dame movie to some of the guys that are chasing her. She just like flutters her eyelashes at them and like does a dance, and they're like,
I can't hurt you.
Yeah.
The other piece that they get, and even this is pretty early, the agile strikes part where they can expand a bardic inspiration as part of an action, bonus action, or a reaction to make one unarmed strike. That, as well as extra damage they can do when they do unarmed strikes. It just feels like some nice flavor. And again, very much into like the fighting or combat style, like you were kind of mentioning, Randy, about like kind of dancing around as a matter of defense, but also now offense, almost like swinging around as part of the dance and smacking someone with the back of your fist or something. They have ways to increase that damage too. So,
or your fan.
Yeah.
I picture someone like a geisha style, like fan dance. And then, you just smack people with the fan. It's worth highlighting too, that is as part of any action, bonus action, or reaction you want to use it on. You can use it on any of those. It's not limited to like, oh, well, if you used your action for X, then you can't use the additional unarmed strike on your bonus action. You can use it even on a reaction. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
They also have ways to spread things around. This actually seems like sort of a theme of all three of the subclasses we're talking about today. But there's a way to also provide benefits to other people. So one is their movement, inspiring movement. So they can, if an enemy moves, you can basically use your reaction to move half your movement speed. And then on top of that, you can also allow an ally to move. And I think it's based partially on what you roll for the dice times 5 feet or something. And all of that movement, your movement and your ally's movement, doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. I think this is kicked off as a reaction to an enemy moving within 5 feet of an ally. So it's kind of like, oh, I see one of my friends is, someone's approaching them, and you can basically move yourself in a direction and allow them to move and not get attacked, which is really, really powerful for battlefield control.
Yeah, their amount of mobility that they use with this is a lot of fun to have, because we don't have a lot of characters that, aside from like naturally a monk, that have so much mobility as like almost their core feature. Aside from agile strikes, which going back to that real quick, you can use that on all three because there's no limit to it as long as you have bardic inspiration. So you can use agile strikes as your attack and then use it again as your bonus action and then again as your reaction. So you basically get hit 3 more times. You kind of have a weird flurry of blows going on there. But yeah, like their mobility is a great additive to this that I think gives it a distinction from a lot of other subclasses that don't have this kind of emphasis.
Also at level 6, they're getting essentially just evasion, which is a big part of the reason that you did the rogue bard build, right? Is because like a bard with the aspects of a rogue is super powerful. Now they have evasion where they take no damage on a successful dex save.
It's essentially evasion on steroids too, because not only do they get the effect, but they can spread that effect to creatures within 5 feet of them, making the same dex save. So it's basically a not selfish version of rogue evasion. You kind of allow other people to get some benefit from it.
Level 14, not level 6.
It's still really cool, and it could completely save your party from that psychic scream or that fireball.
Yeah, fireball for sure.
And also at higher levels, they get Otto's irresistible dance prepared, which they can use, and they basically get the 1 free spending of it, which was really cool. I mean, Otto's is a really powerful spell. I know my last character, I really never got to use it because I was always trying to wait for the right moment or not burn a spell slot on it. So seeing them now have this as, a one-time free use, or they could recharge it. I think they can spend 4 Bardic Inspiration to recharge it before a long rest. But yeah, that's a good spell to have just available to you.
Yeah, having things be rechargeable seems to be another common theme among the new, not just the new subclasses that came out, but also a lot of the class changes that got updated. And that's been really cool. Like, we're only just now starting to actually play with some of that, but I was playing a little bit with it in our session last week. And there was a moment where I was like, I wild shape, and you were like, did you just wild shape again? And I was like, I got spell slots, baby. Like, it was really nice. So yeah, recharge is fun.
Yeah, I'm happy that most of the core features like Bardic Inspiration and Wild Shape, Rage, stuff like that, they gave them more uses, which it's the core feature. Like, that's usually why you pick that one over a fighter, is because you want the rage mechanic, So being able to use it more is great. Or at least for the spellcasters being able to trade off something, which I think is a good trade-off, especially the higher levels when you don't really have a lot of uses for your lower level spells. So being able to do it in something more powerful, or like a moon druid who doesn't care about the spells. Actually, now they kind of do. But regardless, they still would prefer to be able to wild shape more. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much covers all the new subclasses, right?
Yeah.
No.
What is there? Is there another?
There's one more.
Well, don't get mad about it.
I'm mad that you forgot. How could you?
Are you going to rage?
I am actually not at all mad. I am really kind of excited. I complain so much on this podcast about strong theming and flavor, good imagery, decent, fully realized like themes in your features and your flavor of things. And I love the new Path of the World Tree Barbarian. I'm really excited about it. For one thing, I just feel like the theming is really strong. The World Tree is such an iconic mythological figure, and the way that they're utilizing it is really cool. It's like this ethereal, ever-branching thing that spans all the planes, which is what it is in mythology. But the way that the barbarian now has these features where they can access it and access its power and use it to do a lot more things in battle, and especially kind of similar to the other new subclasses, support and buff the party more and control the board better. One of the things about barbarians that a lot of times is a little bit of a detriment to them is their mobility. And this
the teleports
new
are
subclass
crazy.
gives your barbarian teleports
as a bonus action every turn.
Which is already wild, but you can also use it to force a save on an enemy. They have to make, they have to roll against it. But if they fail their save, you can teleport enemies to you. Flavor-wise, such a quintessential barbarian thing that you would want, right? Is the get over here mechanic, where it's just like, no, you come to me and I'm just going to keep wailing on these dudes. Like, the way that it controls the field, the possibilities sound so much fun. Yeah. And one of my favorite spells as a warlock last campaign was Scatter. One of the ways that you can use that feature, the teleport feature at a higher level, is to literally basically just cast Scatter. You can take anyone within 10 feet of yourself with you when you teleport, and the range, if you're taking people with you, goes up to 150 feet. So it basically gives your barbarian Scatter as well. So you've got these amazing mechanics for pulling enemies in closer to you so that you can handle them instead of an ally. If they're all up in an ally's face, you can pull them away because it's a teleport. It's not like they're moving in and out of a range. And now you basically have Scatter, so you can just evacuate everyone if you need to, or you can jump everyone into a fight if you need to. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, I like the idea because all these features require rage. One of the things, quickly, because it just popped in my head, was I like the idea. It was like, go, and then you just teleports everybody, whether they're ready or not. Yeah, they gotta be willing, but kind of the flavor of it.
Yeah, you're so mad. You're just like, get over there. and then they just are.
You're like Leroy Jenkins, but you take the whole party with you. Whenever I was looking at this subclass, the biggest thing that popped out with me was flavor. I was like, this,
Yes.
I've talked about this before with druids, but this is like nature's had
more druidic almost. Yeah.
No, not even that. It's like nature's just like they're done. They've had it. They want this guy just freaking angry and just go wreck their day because they're tired of like life shit, basically. Their stuff, I even kind of can tie a little bit, almost like they're like they're giving them like the life essence and stuff for them to keep going to. So they're like fueling the rage, nature's wrath or nature's rage, as I actually put it earlier, and keep them going in a fight and just let them have it. It's great.
So one thing though, I think is interesting. Actually, I have a couple of points here. Is offensively or combat wise, they also get, if they're wielding a heavy or a versatile weapon, they can increase their range by 10 feet, which is pretty cool because it's not just increased to 10 feet, it's increased, I believe, by 10 feet. So you could end up attacking quite far, and that's even themed. I think it's
15 to 20 feet, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, you could get your range pretty far here, and then on top of that, it lets you, if you hit, activate push or topple weapon masteries in addition to the other ones that you have access to. So it just like furthers, giving them even more options for weapon masteries, which is, I think in combat could be really, really good. The only thing I will say, and that's a positive, the only thing I will say is I think this subclass is going to need something else offensively. So the subclass itself doesn't necessarily get it as a ton of utility, but it doesn't necessarily give it a ton of extra damage or attacks or other things like that, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it might just have you multi-class into something else. But the benefit is now you don't have to multi-class into something else for mobility or utility because you're getting it from this subclass. So you could multi-class into something else purely for the offense.
Normally, I do agree. I think barbarians actually do pretty good with damage, but even regardless with that, what I do like is this brings to the table something that I think weapon mastery has also helped with, and that is having a martial character who doesn't need to be the damage dealer. He can be a controller. He can be a battlefield manipulator. So this is like one of those things, is like, do you want to not be the tank and not be the one who's just dishing out damage, but you actually want to like keep everyone inside of a circle so that fireball hits harder, or they're stuck in Hungers of Hadar? There you go. You got the World Tree Barbarian. Pull them in, push them out.
I agree.
Also at low levels, like the first thing you get, level 3 vitality of the tree, you get temp hit points whenever you're raging, but the life-giving force part of the vitality is at the beginning of every one of your turns. You can choose another creature within 10 feet of you to also get temp hit points. And you only get as many equal to your barbarian level, but to do it for someone else, you roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus.
Yeah.
So you're rolling like multiple d6s and giving that temp to someone for free at the start of every one of your turns.
Yeah, you're sort of a barbarian support.
If you're near your party, you can continuously buff your party every turn as long as you're raging, which is amazing because at lower levels, like literally at level 3, you could be giving, like, what would the max be on your rage bonus? How many d6s would you roll? Like, even if you only rolled 2, your max could be 12 temp hit points at level 3, which is crazy.
Yeah, so the rage damage bonus goes up to 4. So even a +4, like 4d6 is a lot.
Pretty good.
Sort of for free. I also like with the branches of the tree, when you teleport a creature and you can reduce their speed to 0, is a great way to get them into dawn.
Yes.
Like, oh, hey, you just got out of that. Nah, come back.
But, that's why I definitely agree with both of you guys. I mean, I think where I was mentioning that maybe this subclass is somewhat lacking offensively, it's just very interesting in everything else it provides and still has a lot of other interesting combinations, I think. So honestly, all three subclasses we've talked about tonight, I think are going to get used and combined with other things and definitely feel like pretty interesting.
Yeah.
As an aside, fun fantasy nerd side note, there is a series of books called The Symphony of Ages, I believe. I only ever read the original 3 books. I just recently, this was in high school, and I just recently found out that there's like 12 more books. I never knew that. But one of the main characters is a traveler, a hunter that came from Underworld, and they are running from some creature. And they have to travel. They have to go underground and travel through the world tree. And it's crazy. And I remember reading that when I was like 14 or 15 and being like, and it was a really long trip. Like they went through literally the core of the planet and out the other side. And the magic of the world tree at the planet's core shifted them to a different timeline. Basically, they came out in a different time. I think it propelled them into the future or something, but it was really cool. And I've always thought that kind of imagery is really fun. And the way that they've implemented this is really fun. And, it satisfied my like flavor requirements in a way that the sea, as we talked about, like just kind of didn't quite get there. Like I was like, where's the deep sea magic? This is like, here's the world tree. It's everywhere. It's magical. Here's how you access it. This is what it does, and it all works really well with the theme. It all makes sense, and it's just again like a really cool, like you said, like battle master option. I want to play one. I'm excited.
Wait a minute. Maelstrom. That's what I meant to say before when we were talking about the Druid of the Sea. It's very Maelstrom feeling, and actually, I'll make a reference to World of Warcraft, but the enhancement, I think it was. Shamans were kind of like using the power of the Maelstrom. It was very like water, lightning, and ice damage, I believe. So that's what it was going for.
That is also a druid spell, but it's bludgeoning damage.
Let's see. There you go.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Every now and then there's a cow in it. Yeah, so those are the new subclasses. I am really excited about them. And, speaking about things that come from other planes or are magical or are mystical entities that may or may not have tentacles, let's do a dissectional.
My brain hurts.
Let's move into some dissectional, a segment where we ask biological D&D monster questions that no one was asking for answers to. Tonight, we will be exploring the Mind Flayer.
Slimy.
Made popular in wider circles in recent years by cultural phenomena such as Stranger Things and Baldur's Gate 3, this slimy creature has all of the psionics any DM needs to make their game pack a serious punch. And if your players are adventurous enough, they might come away from the encounter slightly different. I mean, is it just me, or are their eyes kind of entrancing? Just me? Okay. I'm ready to know more about them. So what did you two learn on your travels?
Ginger, why does it sound like you're like splunking or something?
Oh, I am. It's character research for campaign 4. Shh, I came to the Underdark. Don't tell anybody.
Ah.
I am going to start off by saying I think they get a bad reputation. A lot of slimy this, slimy that. I mean, maybe they're not so bad.
Maybe they feel like a wet hot dog.
I mean, they might.
Do you notice the hole in the back of his head?
No, don't look at that.
Is that where he plugs into the Matrix?
I just think that maybe they look like that because they had to, Maybe they evolved that way because they have a lot of strengths and weaknesses, right? So maybe they had to become that. Maybe that had a beneficial for their environment that they were in. But anyway, on a more serious note, there's some history with them that has been, I think you could kind of look things up and see that some people believe that they were aliens to some degree and came to the planet.
Look heavily inspired by aliens.
They do, yeah. So I could definitely see that as one possible thing. I more like to think of it from like an evolutionary standpoint, even regardless if they came from somewhere else. But why did they end up evolving the tactics that they use or the body that they have? And I think, a lot of it, if you look at it, they have very high intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Plus, you got the whole hive mind and telepathy going on. So they obviously were a creature at some point that was not able to rely on its strength. I like to think that they had to come up with all these other tactics or other abilities to rely on, which obviously kind of went to a very darker place, right? Because they sort of started taking over and creatures' brains and humanoid brains and controlling everything for a slightly evil purposes, perhaps. But yeah, they I still think that they, maybe they're not so bad.
I actually think on more of how someone would have created a creature like that. They obviously have a very big emphasis on the octopus. Their head basically is an octopus. So, and they're very intelligent animals. So what if they evolved like we did and instead just gain some psionic abilities and the desire to eat brains, and boom, you got a mind flayer,
A lot of things that people think look alien do come from the bottom of the ocean.
True. Just like the maybe that's what the druid of the sea needed, was some alien stuff.
Yeah, more tentacles. But also, I would like to point out that the Mind Flayer is not a creature brought up in any sort of sense of the word in the Spelljammer campaign books. And if it lived in space, wouldn't it be in the ethereal plane? I know they invade. I know they invade into other planes. Like, I'm sure there are some there, but there's not like
they do have plane shift.
There's not like a native society of them in the ethereal plane, according to all of the Spelljammer lore. So, like, if you're playing D&D in space and you're in space, but they're not in space, did they come from space? Inquiring minds want to know.
I mean, their only known environment is the Underdark, which is definitely quite the opposite of space anyway. Though, sort of the blurring the lines, if you go the alien route, they could always have like an alien ship crash land, or sometimes they emphasize like living organism as their walls. Kind of like, I think it was Alien 2 or Aliens, where the ship almost had like an organism on the entire sides. Yeah. So like it could kind of have that style from it, or you just have more of the cave aesthetic. Regardless, it's likely that they're home for the Elder Brain anyway, which resides deep within their home and often would stay hidden. For my purposes with them, I won't touch on the subject of the Elder Brain, even though that's a big part of their society. So I won't get a part of their psychic link for the environment. But specifically with Mind Flayers, I actually use them for my campaign. And one of the core features of them that Baldur's Gate showed it as well almost immediately is that they have a pseudo permanent levitate because they can cast it at will. And one of the best uses for that, I think, as an environment is making an environment that's borderline inhospitable for those who can't levitate. So I actually had pits and chasms that blocked paths. Even to their own bed, they had a pit that anyone could just fall through. And actually, one of the players did fall through.
That's diabolical.
Yeah.
Honestly, it even feeds back into the evolution, right? Like they probably evolved into those sorts of environments, or those, like you're saying, the levitate to survive, right? Stay away from other things that might kill them.
Yeah.
Societally, they're interesting too, right? Because a lot of the structure that we see now, which is where they live in these colonies, and they live in colonies that can span anywhere from 200 to 2,000 mind flayers in a single colony. They also are called Illithid in Undercommon. I speak that now, so I'm going to use their real name because I'm fancy. No, but the Illithid, they evolved, as you were saying, like what caused them to evolve certain ways. They were almost exterminated, right, by the Gith. The Gith were their primary slave species, and they rebelled, and they rose up, and they almost exterminated them completely. And then they started hunting them to extinction. They were trying to destroy them. So they started living in these larger colonies where there's safety in numbers. And the elder brains took over. The interesting thing about the societies that they have is that each colony is governed by an elder brain. The elder brains are made up of the dead mind flayers that came from before. So like when you die, your brain is added, your consciousness is added to the elder brain. It's almost like a giant computer core that runs the whole system. But the thing that's interesting is that while they do safety in numbers just amongst themselves, they also have their psionic slaves. They always have slaves. Each illithid will have at least 2 or 3. So sometimes these society groups, the colony groups, there could be like 2,000 illithid, but there could be like 10,000 slaves in that society, like mind drones working for the illithid, right? But what's really interesting is that the elder brains are controlling. They're not just influencing or communicating between the illithid. They are actually controlling them. They do not have free will.
Yep.
So one of the fun aspects of an illithid for your games can be if an illithid does get separated from the influence of the elder brain long enough, they can regain their personal free will and they can develop their own objectives and go rogue. So, but I would say they're still never a good or even a neutral aligned creature, right? They are evil, even if Tukey thinks maybe they're nice.
Fine.
I think maybe you met one and it made you think that because it's controlling your brain. Or maybe it ate your brain and you're not even you anymore. And we're going to have to get someone for the podcast.
I'm fine. But speaking of the rogue thing, what's interesting though, even more about that too, is if they get back within range essentially of that elder brain or get too close to it or whatever it is, it essentially can get taken back over by it and like re-assimilated into it. So they sort of almost have to stay away and sort of do their own thing just to keep their free will.
Or have a certain ring.
Yeah. One sort of aspect of that, speaking of the ring, is the ones that go rogue tend to a lot of times be statted out as like sorcerers or start trying to learn arcane arts to become like a wizard or something in an effort to combat being reassimilated. Because the actual illithid societies themselves, they spurn the arcane arts because they have intrinsic psionic abilities. They feel like the arcane is a lower form of magic or a lower form of power. So the ones that do go rogue a lot of times end up becoming arcane focused because that's the only other type of force that they can think to use to shield themselves. So a lot of those items, like the Ring of Mind Shielding, do come from potentially rogue illithid research.
So how would you use them to kill the party?
I think it would depend on exactly what type of party, like the party makeup was, but as long as there's at least one weak link in there with intelligence, you can pretty much enthrall a party pretty easy with a group of illithid, right? So I would destroy the party by taking over as many members as I could to be mind slaves. I wouldn't necessarily try to kill them. I think I would try to acquire them. And then if the remaining members couldn't break it, or they weren't strong enough to get them back, or they weren't brave enough to go into the Underdark to free their companion, then maybe those people have to roll new characters, but then maybe we see them again later.
I did that exact same thing.
Yeah, it's more fun that way.
I would just have one take control of a College of Dance bard, because there's no way you'd be able to defeat a Kevin Bacon.
Well, how would you beat it then, Tukey?
Well, okay. I guess you take the opposite approach and you seduce it. No.
Maybe.
Most likely, if you were prepared for it, then you would want to make sure you avoided its mind control. And they're relatively weak physically. So if you get sort of maybe an ambush on it, have numbers on it as well. The problem always is that they have their sort of network, right? So it's hard to take one by surprise. Yeah. But, maybe you could use their environment against them. Like if they're kind of holed up in a certain area, you could, if they have like an infrastructure within buildings or within a cave, maybe you can get fire in there basically and flush them out and cause like a panic. But yeah, it is tricky. Yeah, you have to probably try to use some physical means.
I actually have a contrast to that. I think it would be funny of a battle of psychic energies because they're weirdly not even resistant to psychic damage. Though I feel like you wouldn't want to test out that battle unless you're a wizard. But their Mind Blast, which stuns the target for a minute, it's insanely powerful. It's an AoE. It's crazy. Is an intelligence save, so wizards are much more likely to combat that. And it'd be cool
unless
to
you have a ring.
Well, yeah, there's that too. But it would be cool to have like a psychic battle like that. Or the easiest route is if the DM created these scenarios like the pits and stuff like that. You lead them over the pit and then you make them drop their concentration. Boom, drop down, pit, die. So, yeah.
Drop down, pit, die.
Drop down, pit, die.
Well, like, if you think about it, do you think the first mind flayer to eat a human brain was like, whoa, this is really good? Because they probably were eating creatures first and then, maybe accidentally tasted a human brain. It's like filet mignon.
It depends. Did they eat a gith brain and then move to a human brain? I feel like gith brains might be like tougher.
I guess I meant more like humanoid, but yeah, maybe.
What do you think is the most delicious brain?
Mine?
A small one that you could finish in a bite. Get all the juicy flavors in one go.
This topic got weird. I'm ready to move on. This is the Flash Round, where we take turns creating the bones of a character that anyone can use. If you play one, let us know who they become. All right, let's roll initiative. I got a 14.
I'm going to go first with that nat 20, baby. Yes.
Oh, no way.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
But Randy.
What?
I also got a nat 20.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, but with my bonus.
You don't get a bonus.
Don't take this from him.
What is your second roll then, Ginger?
Roll off.
11.
Aha. See, I got a 14.
Hey, that's what I got on my first roll.
Yes.
All right. The order is Randy, followed by Ginger, followed by Tukey.
Well, in the spirit of just being a winner, we're going to go with a Gith Yankee then.
Wait, why?
Ooh.
Because they're winners. You're not going to be a loser. You're a Gith Yankee.
Because they like chicken dinners.
I mean, they probably do.
Maybe. I mean, it's someone's chicken and they took it, more likely. But yeah.
All right. For the class, my Gith Yankee is going to be a barbarian.
Well, you know what kind of subclass they should get? Because this one's all nice and new and shiny, but they should be a world tree barbarian.
Yosh. Oh, they're winning so much.
And for their appearance, they're going to be on this deep forest green color then, having a single large walking stick as their primary weapon, made out of nice solid looking tree. It's a little bent for, the aesthetic of it. They also have got markings across their face that are of a light green with a brunette spiky hair.
For the background, because the Gith Yankee are so well traveled, I'm going to say that they're a far traveler. And, of course, as we all know, they can also now far travel across the roots of the world tree, which is sick.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
I know, right?
Well, I think for their personality trait, that...
They only get one.
I mean, I'm only going to give them one. For a personality trait, let's go with... They tend to have a lot of misunderstandings. They think someone's saying something maybe because they're a Gith Yankee or because they're a barbarian or because they're an outsider. But in reality, maybe it wasn't. They don't take it in a mean way. They just, they try to convince someone for a while that no, it's not that way. But I mean, it probably isn't anyway. You know?
Confusing.
Yeah.
Their ideal is they just want to make a name for themselves.
Like a good name? Bad name?
Up to whoever's playing it.
Uh-oh.
For bonds, I'm going to say that the bond is with the world tree itself, and that their consciousness often reaches out into the other connected planes of the branches, and it tells them secrets.
Ooh.
Well, then I'm going to give them a flaw that they spend way too much time around trees. Like any tree.
Rude.
Because they just keep thinking it's the world tree. So every time they see a tree, they just have to try to talk to it and sit by it. Understand it.
Ah.
I mean, I sympathize.
Yeah. Well, their item is that walking stick, as it is a part of the world tree. But they may not know where they got it.
They didn't get it from the world tree?
It may have stumbled across them. It could have been a mentor that gave it to them. Or they could have stolen it from someone and then was like, hey, I like this. It's showing me things and allowing me to do cool, interesting teleports.
Like they stole it from some like really fast gnome or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh no! And their name is going to be Lokin. Lokin.
LMNOP.
Lenas. Lokin Lenas. L''A''Nas.
That's a lot of apostrophes.
It is. The more that you put, the better the fantasy is.
Well, I'm going to apostrophe myself out.
Hey, you made it to the end. Well, if you enjoyed this session and want to hear more, you can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at dysfictionalpod for our latest updates and downloads.
Original music for this podcast is provided by Joshua Silver, the artist known as Dimonon on Spotify.
I think my real life subclass is creation, but sometimes I wish it was destruction.